The button element is unique in the fact that not only does it work as a button to submit some type of form or perform some type of action, like advancing through a carousel or pagination, but also the fact that our buttons can be configured to work as links. We made this decision with Clutch Elements to allow Button to be able to swap between its behaviors, between links and buttons, due to the fact that oftentimes when building websites, you are wanting to build navigation bars or add some type of CTA to the middle of one of your sections, whether it's a hero or anything else, where you want that to look like a button already, but you want it to behave as a link to navigate somewhere else. In this video, we will be covering how to configure a button, how to style a button, how to work with a button as a link, how to work with a button as a submit button, and also how to work with a button to perform an action. Let's go ahead and get started with how to configure a button. The first thing that we'll do to configure a button is to first get a button out onto the canvas. We'll open up the library, we'll search for button, and we will add the button from the library. The button contains a text component, which allows you to change the text. You're also able to add icons from the library. Let's go ahead and add an icon and change the text. Now that we've changed what our button says, let's go through some of the button properties. By default, the button includes two default properties in the properties panel. The behavior, which allows you to switch between a link and the button, and an href property, where you can set the path of where you want your button to navigate you to. This could either be to another page in your site, or it could be to an external site. You're also able to add query parameters with this property, similar as you would expect when working with the linked primitive in Clutch. Additional properties can be found in the More Properties section. Here you can find properties like ARIA label to set accessible labels, target to control how the page navigates or how the button actually navigates, whether you want it to open within the same page, open into a brand new blank tab, or additional options. The onClick property for whenever you click and you want to perform some type of trigger or action on the button when it's working as a button. A disabled state to disable the button. The type, of course, when it is of type button, you want to be able to choose whether it is working as a button, as a submit, or as a reset. These are great for whenever you're working with forms. Autofocus, if true, the button will be focused when rendered, and download, another option for whenever you want the button to work as an ability to download, to work as like a download link. So you now know how to insert a button from the library and how it can be configured in your projects. We'll next talk about how to style a button. The basics of styling a button are very similar to that of other visual builders that you've worked with before, where you want to maybe style the background of the button itself. So I've selected the button. We'll add a indigo background here of 700. This changes the background color. You can also change the size of the button by adding additional padding, or even increasing the width and height of your button. Give this some more padding, give it a little more horizontal padding too. Now we have pretty large button, and we could also increase the typography. Additionally, you also want to perform some type of hover effect whenever you're hovering buttons, you want to change the background. So by clicking in the states box here in the style panel, we have several button states that are pre-exposed. So we'll go ahead and select the hover, and we'll set the background color of our hover to a darker background. So when we go into play mode and we hover our button, we get a nice transition for when it is hovered. Additionally, you want to maybe set some type of active state for when a button is clicked. So we can add an active state, and we'll set the background color again to an even darker background. So we go back into play mode, and then once we click, we go into a shade even darker while the button is actively being clicked. To style a disabled state button, we'll go back in, we'll add a new state of disabled. And we'll need to add the disabled property and set that to true. So now when our button is in a disabled state, we'll have the disabled state actively being applied, and the button is no longer clickable while in play mode. That's the basics of how to get started with styling a button. We'll next go into and learn how you can work with a button as a link. As mentioned before, buttons by default come automatically with their behavior set as a link. All you need to do to work with a link is set your href property. Here I'm going to select custom, and we'll navigate to another page, and we'll navigate to the clutch.io page. And we'll set the target blank, so this opens up in a new tab in my browser. Start play mode. I'll click, and we'll be taken to clutch.io's homepage. That's the basic functionality of working with a button as a link. And we'll now jump into working with buttons as performing some type of submit action. So here we have a form that's on the canvas. This is just a email sign-up form that I've gone ahead and set up. The form itself is using a onSubmit action that is using our Zapier library integration, and it's using the send to Zapier function or action here. And this just sends form data to my Zapier using a webhook. So I've bound the form data to the email form here that will collect the email and then send it to my Zapier integration. And then the form, or then the button itself is set to that of type button. And by default, when a button is set as a button within a form, its default type is that of a submit. If I needed to change this button to add maybe a reset button, or additionally add a reset button, I would go in and add my type, and then I would set it to type reset. I'll go ahead and just for this demo, I'll leave this type property here. I'll leave it as submit, and we'll put in my email here. Hello world we'll do hello@world.com. I hit enter. The form is submitted successfully, and actually I should show the fact that I can also hit the button that submits the form. that actually is working with the button in the form itself, not hitting the enter key. So back to Zapier, we can double check, find new records. And here is my newest record that came in to my Zap webhook. So that's working with button as performing a submit action on a form. Now let's talk about performing an action with the button itself. So this is for scenarios where you want to do something when the button is clicked. This might be, maybe you're wanting to add quantity of something, or when a button is clicked, you trigger some type of, maybe you trigger a pop-up or something else on your page to show up. And so we'll just go through the steps of setting up a basic function here with this button. We'll first set it up as a button, as a behavior. We don't need the href property, so we'll ignore that. We'll add our onClick action. And then with our onClick action, let's create an alert function that alerts a user that they've unlocked maybe a discount or a promo code. So I'm going to quickly create a new function. We don't need any of this boilerplate code. Accidentally closed out of VS Code, fat fingered it there. So I'll start this over. We'll create a new function. When you create a new action here, we give you some boilerplate code. We don't need any of that. And we're just going to open up Copilot and request a action that does that. So all actions are essentially just functions. So I'm going to ask it for, I need a function that opens an alert. That looks good to me. We'll hit save. Back in Clutch, we'll look for notify promo unlocked function that Copilot wrote for me. And when I go to the button and click the button, we should see an alert pop up on the screen. Think I might need to do a little refresh on the frame. I had something get stuck there, but there we have it. Now we have an alert popping up that lets me know, congratulations, you unlocked a promo code. Awesome, that works. So that's the basics of adding an onClick function and creating your own function. Additionally, one other thing that we've incorporated with a lot of our elements from the Elements library is the fact that they are able to be controlled with other actions and they expose some type of state. So let's go through an example of that. We'll leave this button here, but we no longer need this onClick, so we'll just clear that value. And let's grab a sheet element from the library. So the sheet is a component that injects a sheet from the side of the screen. We'll just reorder this where we have our button on the left and our open sheet button on the right. So when you click the sheet itself, it opens up a panel over on the right-hand side, similar to like a dialogue. This can be used in numerous different types of ways. Maybe you have on a listing site, you have a contact the listing agent, and this pulls out their like contact information or something. So we'll pretend that this is what we're seeing here. But you have the initial button that opens the sheet already set up and established for you, but maybe you want to use a button somewhere else in your page to where you have two different ways or multiple different ways of opening that sheet and opening up that contact information for that listing agent. So what we've done is we've exposed some of the actions that from other elements, and you can try this out, mix and match elements together and open them or perform some type of function or action with the onClick with other buttons. So back to our button here on the left-hand side that we removed the on-click action, we'll open up and add a new action to it. And here we have some actions that are exposed from the sheet element. And we have one that's called toggle opened. So we'll bind that and select that there. And so now not only can the sheet be opened from the open sheet button, but it can also be opened from the other button that isn't directly correlated with the sheet element. So that's two ways of working with actions and how to add an on-click behavior to your buttons. To recap everything that we've learned today, we've learned that buttons from Clutch Elements are unique in the fact that they not only work as traditional buttons, but they also work as links. We've learned how to configure a button, all of the different properties that a button accepts, how to style a button, how to use buttons as links, how to work with a button within a form to submit form data, and how to work with actions and adding an action to a button as well. Please leave any comments below if you have any questions about button or actions or anything that you've learned in this video. And if you haven't already, join our Discord, reach out to us there. Let us know any questions that you have and what you would maybe like to see in future videos or libraries.